Welcome to the Red Shirts Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts, Matthew Betz and Matt Okada.
And welcome in to another episode of the Red Shirts Fantasy Football Podcast. This is your host for the evening, Matthew Betz, aka the Fantasy PT. And unfortunately, tonight I am not joined by Matt Okada. He is slaving away at the NFL Network. It is, of course, the week after the Super Bowl, and the grind does not stop for the NFL Network and for Okada, unfortunately. But I am joined by a very special guest and new partner here with Red Shirts Fantasy Football Podcast, good friend, Jon Helmkamp. John, what's up, man?
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
I'm doing great, man. So this is our first time our listeners are hearing you and or if you're on the live stream, seeing your face, your beautiful face. We had to bring you on because your beard game definitely steps it up compared to what I can offer, and for sure what Okada can offer.
Well, if I lack anything in analysis, I'll make up for it with my beard. So we'll just go with that.
Absolutely, man. Love it. Give our listeners a little bit of a rundown on kind of, your background and where you've previously worked when it comes to fantasy football, what you do day to day, that kind of stuff. So the floor is yours.
Yeah. So fantasy football, been obviously playing for a very long time, got into the writing of it this last year over at Expand the Box Score. Really enjoyed that. A lot of fun over there. Still going to be contributing with them as well. And on the day-to-day basis, I have a lot of fun helping people with insurance. So it's a very riveting industry.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so it's been a really good last year or so, kind of really diving into fantasy football, kind of getting into that game. Kind of always been fascinated by running backs. That's always just been something that I've been drawn to. So kind of putting my own twist and analysis on that and starting to really kind of dive into how to better analyze both players that are currently in the league and prospects coming out of college is kind of where my focus is right now.
Yeah, awesome, man. And that's a perfect lead into the running back rush rating metric that you created. So that is, of course, with Expand the Box Score. Yes. And we definitely support their work, man. You guys all do great work over there. So go check them out, Expand the Box Score. But tell us more about the running back rush rating. And, that'll kind of lead us right into our rookie breakdown series that we're going to start tonight. John has been grinding the tape, looking at a lot of college film for these running backs, and that's kind of his specialty. So tell us more about the rush rating metric.
Yeah. So over this last year, I started building this rush rating metric through Expand the Box Score, and kind of the data team that is behind it does a great job of sourcing all the data that's needed to put this together. But it's an efficiency plus usage metric. So basically trying to boil down the efficiency of a running back, how they're used in the run game, their yards per carry per run direction, breaking that down to 7 different rush directions. And then also including, basically a percentile for how many rushes per game they're seeing, a percentile for how many targets per game they're seeing in the passing game. And basically taking all of those factors into consideration and coming out with one number at the end that represents their, efficiency plus usage. So that's been a lot of fun, hoping to continue to kind of flesh that out a little bit more this offseason as we head into next season. But it's been a lot of fun to put together.
Yeah, man, it's awesome stuff and it's great work. And that's kind of how I found you, of course, with your interactions on Twitter, but also, the running back rush rating metric and the Expand the Box Score staff. So we're super psyched to have you on, man. It's going to be great for our listeners, great for our readers. If you haven't already, be sure to head on over to the site, redshirtsfantasyfootball.com. John's 2 preview articles up on the site already. We have a third one probably dropping this week. We've got DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor up on the site. So check that out. And we're going to talk about some rookie running backs tonight. Before we do, just a reminder, follow us on Twitter at RedshirtsFFPod. We are currently live streaming this and probably will be streaming most of our broadcasts, which is fun because you get to see our beautiful faces. You also get, the raw recording of what we do. No faking it. This is, just John and I chatting running backs, and of course Okada when he's on the pod too. And you get to kind of see a little bit of the live interaction, which I think is fun. So check us out there, of course, on Periscope, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere you can find anything social media related. We are Red Shirts FF Pod. All right, John, you ready to get into it, man?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So we're going to go through 5 rookie running backs. Of course, it is Dynasty season. We are past the Super Bowl. It is on to Dynasty, and that means rookie drafts. So what we're going to do tonight is talk about 5 rookie running backs. We're going to go through John's scouting profile so far for 5 different running backs. And we're going to go number 5 all the way to number 1. And these are the names you guys know. These are the top names in the class. These are going to be the guys that you want with your 101, your 102, your 103, etc. So these are the hot names in Dynasty. Let's break it down, John. Who you got at number 5?
Yeah, so number 5, I have J.K. Dobbins, Ohio State, as my 5th ranked running back coming out. There's definitely a lot of, and first off, let me just back up by saying all 5 of these top 5 names I think are going to be good NFL running backs.
Oh yeah, they're studs.
Yeah, these are all guys that can play. These are all guys that bring a lot to the table, that can contribute in a number of ways. So, you're kind of splitting hairs a little bit with the top 5. But I have J.K. Dobbins at number 5. Some of the good things that he brings to the table, I've got him, pretty well ranked with his power and with his agility. He does a good job there. His contact balance is pretty nice. One thing that I kind of have a little bit of a knock on him for is his processing and vision. Of these top 5 running backs, I have him the lowest rated in that category. Kind of watching a lot of tape and watching him, he runs almost ahead of his feet the entire time. He's always just full steam ahead, 100%, just gunning it. And I'd like to see more patience, more allowing the blockers to set up in front of him, allowing him to, kind of pick his holes a little bit better, instead of just trying to slam into a brick wall every time. So that was one of the things that I kind of have him knocked a little bit on. Also, his pass protection kind of leaves a lot to be desired. There was a number of instances where he didn't make the right read. It wasn't necessarily technique or, getting beat. It was not seeing a defender that was kind of a free runner coming in. So those are kind of the 2 areas that leave a little to be desired in the top of this class. But obviously very, productive college running back.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I just want to kind of point to with J.K. Dobbins and his college scouting profile, it's just kind of a general, look at his game logs and look at his season statistics. He had a pretty down year 2 years ago compared to what he did last year. Was there anything different that you saw in his game tape this year compared to maybe 2 years ago when he didn't have quite as good of a statistical season for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, I think this year in particular, just kind of looking at the numbers, obviously the attempts is a big part of it. I mean, he got 71 more carries this last season that he got in 2018, 2019. But his efficiency was a lot better this last season as well. Obviously, he topped 2,000 rushing yards, 2003, which is, that's a massive season. That's a really high number.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, that'll do. Compared to 1,053 in 18-19. So he doubled his output. So the usage is definitely a big part of it. I think that they just ran their offense through him this year, really giving him the opportunities to break off those big plays when he wanted to. And he does, he had a lot of big runs, a lot of big yardage that he was putting out. And most of the time when he was translating that, I think it was the power game that really, sprung him on some of those bigger runs. He doesn't have elite speed. He's not a track star running back.
Yeah, for sure.
He's going to, put a shoulder down on somebody or stiff arm someone into the ground and make that one guy miss. And I think I saw more of that this year in his game, more leaning on the power to spring him on those bigger runs.
Yeah. Definitely something that I would agree with when I watched a little bit of his tape as well. One other thing to note, I was reading a couple articles about JK and his off-season program last year. And, the dude was putting in work, changing his training routine, his nutrition, etc. And I think it showed for sure. Like you mentioned, he wasn't really a burner. He's not going to be that guy that really beats you with speed, but he's quick enough. And that's something that I'm seeing on tape for sure to be effective. Real quick, just give our listeners kind of a rundown on like the overall grading process that you have. Then let's give our listeners the final score for JK.
Sure. So basically, I have a number of categories here. Actually, let me count them up for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different categories that I am looking for, on tape mostly. This is mostly a film breakdown process that I rely on. I trust what my eyes see. So I like going to the film. I like watching how they play. Out of those categories, there are several categories that are weighted, out of 10, several that are weighted out of 5, and just a couple that are weighted out of just, 2.5 to total up for 100 points. So J.K. Dobbins, his total came out to 67.5 out of 100, which is strong. Basically, out of the categories that are graded on a 10-point scale, anything 6 or above basically grades as being NFL average or better. So 6 is basically NFL average. When you look at a speed, he's got NFL average speed of a 6. He has a number of categories where he's in the 7.5 range. He's not really elite in anything. He doesn't have elite agility. He doesn't have elite processing or vision. He's got above average in several categories, like power 7.5, agility 7.5, contact balance 7.5. Doesn't really pop off in any one category. Nothing really is like, wow, that's an amazing part of his game. But he's just very stable. Like he's just has a really good, platform across the table. So yeah, he comes out at a 67.5 on that 100-point scale.
Yeah, perfect. And that's a great breakdown. We'll have all these articles on the site, so you'll be able to read each of these categories. Jon does a nice job of kind of breaking down 1 to 3 sentences about each category and kind of justifying the score for it. So that's great context. So we've got 67.5 on J.K. Dobbins out of 100. Good prospects. Certainly Jon's not in love with him, which you could argue is a little bit of a hot take. I think most...
I've seen him higher quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, for sure. People are all about J.K. I've seen him at 1 in some people's ranks, 2. So definitely room for debate, and I think landing spot will probably have a big, factor in this class. But it's always good to have that pre-draft process in your mind because landing spot matters, but it's not everything, right? So definitely good to have that baseline. So we got JK at number 5. Who you got at number 4?
Number 4, I have Cam Akers out of Florida State. What's interesting is that several of the running backs in this class, their physical measurables are all coming out really, really close. J.K. Dobbins listed at 5'10", 217. Obviously, we'll see how these numbers look at the combine when we kind of get, the real numbers as opposed to the maybe slightly inflated numbers by the school.
Oh, yeah.
But Dobbins is listed at 5'10", 217. Cam Akers is listed at 5'11", 212. Very similar. Cam Akers, I like Cam a lot. I like him more than Dobbins quite a bit. And one of the reasons why is that Cam Akers was playing with an absolutely garbage offensive line. A lot of the big plays that I saw Dobbins pop off were kind of set up for him. In terms of what Akers has to create on just about every run, I swear he had defenders in the backfield on like 30, 40% of his runs. So his ability to create when it's not given to him is something that I really like. He is very agile, very slippery. He's got an 8 there. Actually, all 4 of the remaining backs in this class are at 8 or above in their agility. His vision is also very good. He does a great job. He can mix up the power game where I've got him graded out of 7. He's also has, really good short space quickness and burst. That was one thing. His ability to change direction, be decisive, put his foot in the ground, get going upfield was something that I really like out of Cam Akers. Another thing with Akers, his receiving is about NFL average. They didn't use him a ton in the receiving game. He's not Christian McCaffrey that's going to line up as a wide receiver. But I think that he's got sufficient enough hands to get the job down on checkdowns as long as he can get pass protection taken care of on 3rd down.
Yeah, well, if you're Booger McFarland, you don't really need your running backs to catch the ball, right?
No, man.
Please tell me you saw that clip.
30 seconds. I did. Can we
Oh my gosh, brutal.
Talk about how Booger McFarland, everyone wants less of Booger McFarland, and for some reason, he was everywhere during the NFL Super Bowl week. Why was he all over my screen at the Pro Bowl and at the Super Bowl for a whole week when we thought we were done with him?
It's amazing. For listeners who aren't aware, that is referencing the most recent clip of Booger talking. I think it was on First Take about they had Christian McCaffrey on set, and he's basically talking about how his running back doesn't need to catch the ball. He prefers Zeke to CMC. But yeah, just laughable, honestly, at this point. Not to derail us too much, but let's get back to Cam Akers. So you mentioned it. The offensive line, and I agree 100%, was atrocious for Florida State during Cam's most recent times, for sure. Is that something that you think is going to deter people from drafting Cam Akers? Your casual dynasty players, your casual rookie drafters, when you look at Cam Akers, are people going to remember him for the wrong reasons, and it's because of a down year from production standpoint? Because, I mean, I think just a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, if you were playing Devy, if you were playing Dynasty, you knew Cam Akers, and you knew him for a reason, right? Like, I remember doing a couple of startups where people were taking him in Devy drafts so early because of the hype around him, and then now it's like Florida State, it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Do you think he'll be a value in rookie drafts?
I think he'll absolutely be a value, because for that reason alone, if you've got casual players that have not done the digging on these incoming running backs, and they're just going to spend 30 seconds going to ESPN and seeing what his stats were, it does look down. He had 231 rush downs, good amount. That's good usage. For a little over 1,100 rushing yards. So, compared to Cam Akers' 2,000, that's a big difference. He did find a way to somehow get 14 touchdowns with that offensive line, which is great.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Very. Put together, 5, it was like right on 5 yards a carry, just about, that he was able to stream together. But yeah, I do think that he's going to be a nice value for the casual dynasty league, especially, your home leagues, stuff like that, where you've got, rookies coming out. They're going to look at the raw stats and see that, he had far less output. But I think from an actual NFL standpoint, I believe that the GMs are going to see, wow, this guy was really able to create on his own. I think teams that have a subpar offensive line, like my Seattle Seahawks, might look, because we know Pete Carroll loves running backs.
Does he ever?
Gosh, does he ever? That might be an interesting decision on day 2. I don't know. But teams that have subpar offensive lines might like the fact that Cam Akers put a lot of tape out there of being able to make 2-3 guys miss. Yeah,
definitely. Is that a landing spot you think is realistic for Akers? Is Seattle?
It depends. Seattle has, I believe it's 6 picks in the first 4 rounds. They've got some draft capital this year.
Oh yeah.
They have a big amount of cap space to play with. So they might be able to get some free agents to fill some of the holes that they might not need to rely on the draft for, which I like. So if they're able to address the trenches really on both sides in free agency and not need to rely so much on the draft for that, I don't know. You've got Chris Carson coming off a hip injury in the last year of his rookie contract. Rashad Penny just hasn't been what they were hoping him to get, especially when Nick Chubb was still on the board in that draft class.
Not bitter.
I'm not bitter at all. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. That might be something, because I don't expect him to be, one of the first 2 backs taken. If he's, falling into day 2, that could be. I could see that happening. I think he would work really well in that system and with that offensive line.
Yeah, for sure. And with how they use the running backs, I think any back that falls to them in the draft is going to be interesting from a dynasty perspective. Like you mentioned, Chris Carson with the hip injury as well. Rashad Penny, who I was a big truther, not going to lie, kind of still am. Of course,
I know. I can't him. I can't get rid of him completely.
Yeah, can't quit him. We're not here to talk about Rashad Penny. We're here to talk about these rookies. Let's move on to your number 3 running back. Who is it and why?
Number 3 running back. I don't think we put out a final grade. Final grade on Cam Akers, I've got at 71.
Good call.
Him about 3.5 points higher than J.K. Dobbins. Number 3, I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, CEH, out of LSU. He is small. I am so interested to see what his combine measurables are because he was listed at 5'8", 209. So he's already on the small side for running backs, but man, is he just so electric, so slippery. He is the best receiver out of these top 5 guys by far. He can line up and run routes. He's really the modern day running back that we're starting to see teams go towards. He's not your old school thumper. He is someone that, you might get him 18 touches a game and 5 of them could be, receptions. He's someone that can line up all over the field. He's so electric in space. His quickness and burst, I've got him at an 8. Receiving, I have him at a 9. He's the only above 8 graded receiver in this class. He breaks tackles and shows a lot more power than I would expect for a running back his size too. He can hold up. He can get it done between the tackles. Really the big thing with him, and he's fast. He's quick. He's got long speed and short-term quickness and burst. The one thing I'd like to see better pass protection out of him, but even at his size, he was very willing and he makes a lot of the right reads. Some of it is just technique. So I think that can be coached up a bit at the next level to make sure that he's staying on the field, on 3rd down.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, you pointed out with his pass catching ability, that's the thing that stood out to me too, watching some LSU games this year, is he is fit for today's NFL. So I love that call. I've actually seen a couple comps with him with Austin Eckler. Do you agree with that comp? And if so, give me a good landing spot for a guy like this that a team maybe could use a young pass catching back who can honestly do it all.
Yeah, he really can do it all. I think that he is a better runner between the tackles than Austin Eckler is. So I can kind of see the comp. I think it might be a bit lazy, just a, hey, let's compare him to a pass catching running back.
Smaller stature,
smaller
kind
stature.
of
Catch. Let's compare him to Eckler.
Yeah,
he's a better runner than Eckler is. Landing spot, man, he can fit just about anywhere. Obviously, there's a couple of more smash mouth teams in the league that I wouldn't love him to go to.
Probably not a Seattle type of back, right? Like they want to on the rock.
No, you want a scheme that's gonna spread him out, open things up, get him out in motion. Seattle doesn't do that. They run a lot of design passes out of the backfield, which obviously he'd be great at. But this is a true dynamic pass catching running back. Landing spots that I could think of that might use him well. It actually might be interesting if Melvin Gordon leaves the Chargers.
Yeah.
Of comparing him to Austin Eckler, that could be an interesting landing spot for him. I could also see, he really fits just about everywhere. Obviously, we know that Tampa Bay is looking for a running back. We know Indy's looking for a running back. But I think that those teams have more holes to fill. They might not invest their early draft capital on a running back. So
sure.
I'm really interested to see where he's going to go and how GMs are viewing him. It's going to be an interesting thing. Obviously, draft capital is so important. We know that the hit rate of running backs and wide receivers actually taken before day 3, taken day 1 or day 2, gives them much more upside. They have more investment from the team. So his draft capital is going to be one to watch. I'm interested to see where he's going to go. Kansas City would be incredibly exciting.
My God.
that would be dirty. Like, that would be insane. I don't know if they'll do it because obviously they're getting a lot of run out of Damian Williams. But if they somehow pull the trigger on that would be crazy.
Yeah, that would be phenomenal. I think Dynasty Twitter would lose their mind.
Oh, yeah.
Which, it's so fun to see Damian Williams just crushing it in the Super Bowl. Should have won an MVP.
I agree. I honestly think that he should have. I actually called that. I was watching the game with my dad. And when he snapped off that run to ice it, I was like, there's your MVP. It's got to be. But, I can obviously understand Mahomes as well. But, I don't know. Damian Williams seems to just do great from December on. and that's about how he works.
Yep.
So
Derrick Henry, but way less.
Yeah.
With Clyde Edwards-Helaire, let's talk about some of the mismatches he can create, because one thing I noticed on tape, I was watching some Joe Burrow tape, and I watched like 3 games, and I was like, yeah, my eye is just drawn to this running back. He's electric. And one thing I noticed is when he gets in space with the linebacker, it is a complete mismatch. I mean, anyone that is watching this tape and you see them try to cover him one-on-one with the linebacker, game over. Is that something that you see on tape as well? And if so, let's talk about that translation to an NFL-style offense, because, in today's NFL, of course, like you mentioned, these backs are no longer your 20 carries, 3 target type of backs. Like they're getting 12 to 15, and they're getting 3 to 6 targets. When you look at a player like this, like his ability to mismatch against linebackers, do you see his ability to line up like in the slot, kind of all over the field, or is he like a strictly out of the backfield type of player?
No, he can line up anywhere. And I was watching a lot of tape on him, and they did a great job of using him everywhere, which, by the way, the passing game coordinator for LSU, now the offensive coordinator in Carolina, CMC. If you needed any more reason for CMC, I don't know why you would, but he's going to continue to see great passing game work lined up all over the field. I think that's going to really benefit him well. But same thing. I was watching tape on him, and I'm forgetting what game it was, but he was lined up in the slot. The route that he put on this linebacker, I'm pretty sure I actually jumped off my chair. Like, stood up. I was so excited because he runs routes like a wide receiver. He runs them like a quick, twitchy wide receiver. If you've got him lined up in the slot, a mismatch with a linebacker, his ability to separate was insane. And he would just come up, break the linebacker down. Linebacker has no idea which direction he's going to go after that. And his quickness, his ability to split whichever way he wanted to go, he found himself wide open time and time again. 5 yards of space. Obviously out of the slot. He lined up out wide a lot too for LSU. That's something that he brings to the table. But yeah, if you can get him on a linebacker, it's game over. It's a complete and total mismatch.
Totally, man. That's exactly what I saw. That's exciting for today's NFL. So I'm really intrigued by where he goes in the draft and which team takes him. So a super interesting prospect. One guy that I've been rising on a ton, and it sounds like you are too. Give us your final grade here on CEH.
Yeah, I've got him at a 73.5, 2.5 points above Akers. Really, he separates himself in the receiving game, especially. I've also got a grade in there called joystick, just a player's ability to create, spin moves, jukes in space, what he can do. And he is incredible in space. You get him out there, like we were talking about, with a linebacker, and they have no idea where he's going to go. So, yep, I've got CEH at a 73.5. Love
it. Okay, man, let's kick it over to number 2. This is, I don't want to say it's a hot take, but I think you're against consensus, and I like it a lot. I kind of agree with you a bit as far as some of his weaknesses, but I still have him as my 1. He's your 2. Who is it?
Yes, my 2, definitely against consensus, is DeAndre Swift out of Georgia. I can hear jaws dropping everywhere. And it's
JCW Helmkamp on Twitter when you want to let him know.
Come at me. I'll put up the meme with the change my mind with the guy just sitting at the table.
Yeah, perfect.
That's me right now. I am firmly locked in with him as my 2. I love DeAndre Swift. It's really splitting hairs up at the top of this. Really, the couple things with him. First, some pros. His contact balance is insane. It is so good. I've got him rated at a 9 with contact balance. His ability to absorb hits. And the thing about it is that he avoids tackles with agility, not necessarily power. Like his ability to make someone miss at the last second and roll off of them or literally spin move off of that person's shoulder is so good. He's so good when he gets into space. His contact balance, I've got it at a 9. His joystick rating, I've got it at 8, like CEH. He's so slippery. One thing that he does so incredibly well is he sets up defenders. He shows them what what he wants to show them and then takes it away. Like, he'll make a linebacker think that the linebacker's got the right angle on him, and then he'll do something to completely change course, and that linebacker or cornerback even comes up grasping at air. So he's very good in space. A couple things that I don't love in his game, pass protection. He's willing, similar to Cam Akers. He's very willing in pass protection, which is a good thing. You want to see that. But his form, his hands, not so great. He got beat, a number of times. And his long speed is not great. I've got him and J.K. Dobbins pretty similar on their speed. I gave both of them a 6. He's not a burner. If he had that element to his game, if he had long speed combined with his elusiveness in the open field, that would be lethal. I think we'd be looking at, a truly top tier, coming out of college running back like a Saquon, something like that. But without that element to his game, doesn't really have that. Now, again, if you can make 3 people miss, you don't necessarily need the long speed in order to convert it into a huge run, and he can definitely do that. But yeah, that's where I've got him. I've got him at 2.
Yeah, and I think you make some good points in the article. Like I said, that's at redshirtsfantasyfootball.com. We'll tweet it out again this week, but definitely check it out because I think it makes some interesting points as to why you justify a certain score for a player. And specifically, for Swift, I think you say it perfectly. Like, the dude is fast enough for today's NFL. He's not a burner like you mentioned, but man, I don't know about you. I don't know remembering seeing a prospect that is as good and fluid when he wants to change direction and stick his foot in the ground. I mean, it is lights out, like on a dime. I mean, LaShawn McCoy has the Twitter handle cut on dime 25. Yeah. We might have to give that to DeAndre Swift, man. He changes direction like no other. And when you don't have the speed that, someone else in the NFL has or another prospect has, it doesn't really matter to me personally when you can do that. Is that something that you agree with?
I do. I mean, he is crazy fluid. The 2 guys at the top of this list are a 1A, 1B. This is a tier to their own. Both of them, very much so that way. They don't waste movement and they don't lose speed in their decision-making. His ability, Swift, to change direction, like you said, is crazy. He can go at a 90 to 180 degree angle and keep his momentum going, and absolutely make 3-4 defenders fall one direction while he's cutting the other.
Absolutely put him on ice skates. Embarrassing.
Yeah,
it's fun to watch. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've watched 3 games of DeAndre Swift, and I think I'm done. Like I'm sold. I'm so in on this guy. I think he's going to be fantastic in the NFL. I think he fits today's game perfectly. So I like Swift a lot. You're a touch slower than consensus. You still love the guy. But I mean, like you said, this running back class, like any other year, I think you would agree DeAndre Swift is the 101 pretty easily.
Yeah, most years, probably, 7 out of 10 years, he'd be the 101. Unless you've got a real, truly transcendent Saquon, Zeke coming out of college. He's most years he'd easily be the 101 next year, far and away.
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's hit it with the final grade, and then let's get on to the number 1 running back in this class.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift final grade 76. So got him fairly comfortably ahead of CEH. Really getting up there, starting to push those, upper 70s, looking like a very, very strong prospect. Again, he's listed 5'9", 215. It's kind of that same frame that we're seeing Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins. We'll see what that looks like as he gets into the combine. My number 1 running back in this draft class is Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin. I am firmly planted, a little bit on an island. Definitely kind of against the consensus on this one, but I love Jonathan Taylor's game. He has the long speed that I wish that Swift had. He is a track running back. When he gets going, he's gone. His quickness burst in the short field is, to me, negligibly less than DeAndre Swift. His ability in short spaces in a phone booth is incredible. He is very elusive, very tough. If you go to my Twitter handle, my pinned tweet is a video of him against Southern Florida last year. And this run inside with defenders coming all different directions around him, he like teleports underneath a linebacker. I don't know how he does it. I've watched it 1,000 times. I swear he was bottled up with 4 people in front of him, and the next thing you know, he's gone for a 40-yard touchdown. His ability in short space is incredible. His receiving ability, both he and DeAndre Swift, I think, are above par receivers. I gave him the same grade, both a 7. Jonathan Taylor did not get used a ton in the passing game. He is not the CEH that's going to line up out wide or put him in the slot, with a mismatch. That's not necessarily his strength, but his processing and vision to me, Jonathan Taylor's, I gave him a 9. I gave DeAndre Swift an 8. His vision, the ability to pick the right lane is so good and so clean, and he does not waste space or time in doing so. I love everything about his game. He's an above average pass blocker, which is great. And, it's not necessarily a sexy thing to look at for a running back coming out, but it matters a ton to NFL GMs. He has an insane nose for the goal line. That is another one of my metrics that's on a scale of 5. I gave him a 5. When he gets down at the goal line, his ability to have a nose for the end zone and rack up those touchdowns, which translates very well to the NFL. Running backs coming out that have good touchdown totals, generally that translates well at the next level. He is a do-everything back. He's your early down thumper if you need it, with long speed that can break off a home run at any time.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit on every single point I wanted to bring up. The one that I definitely wanted to touch on was touchdown production. I mean, You can't turn on ESPN during the college football season and not see a highlight of Jonathan Taylor scoring a touchdown. So, like you said, that was a huge sticking point. And one thing that people argued for Devin Singletary last year was his ability to find the end zone. We saw him have a pretty solid year last year. Like you mentioned, it does translate well from college to the NFL. So I'm glad you brought that up. The dude has a nose for the end zone. I agree 100%. The other thing is, man, the patience at the line of scrimmage, it's so beautiful to watch. It's Lev Bell-esque in a way that is, setting up his blocks. But I think even better than Le'Veon Bell. I think Le'Veon Bell's ability to kind of tap dance in the backfield and then find the hole is almost, I don't want to say overdone at times, but not quite as purposeful. I think Jonathan Taylor does a much better job of doing it for the purpose of finding the block to go behind and finding the hole to go through. And I think the pinned tweet on your account highlights it perfectly. I actually just watched it while you were talking and I was smiling. I don't know if you can see me, but it's fun to watch, man. Is that something that you think is, applicable to today's NFL? Because I feel like, and one thing Okada and I have talked about is just when you watch Lev Bell play, if the offensive line doesn't work for his style, I mean, he's stuffed in the backfield for a 2-yard loss with the Jets. We saw that this year a ton.
What he averaged, like 3.2?
Exactly, 3.2. And for Jonathan Taylor, I feel like his game with the way he sets up blocks is going to really excel at the NFL level. Agree with that or no? Yeah,
I totally do. I think the comparison to Lev Bell is totally warranted, but I agree with you that he does it better because he doesn't. I noticed the same thing with Lev Bell. He will tap dance, and if nothing's there, he takes a loss. With Jonathan Taylor, he's very decisive. If it's there, he hits it when it needs to be. If it's not there, then he does take his time and his patience to allow everything to set up in front of him. And that, to me, is so beautiful to watch game tape of Jonathan Taylor because his ability to navigate, especially down the field. I mean, a 20, 30-yard run, it's not just a stretch right where he hits the burners and goes as long as he can and then gets tackled. He hardly ever shows his track speed because he's waiting. He's constantly taking what's there, but allowing the game to come to him, allowing things to shape up in front of him, kind of bobbing and weaving down the field. It looks so fluid and effortless. Kind of comparing him to why I have J.K. Dobbins as low as I do is because J.K. Dobbins to me looks like every run is forced. It looks like it is 100% energy, as fast as I can go. You just slam into anything that's there. There's a lack of patience and Jonathan Taylor just looks effortless in the way that he navigates the field, and it doesn't look like he's hardly trying, and suddenly he's got a 25-yard gain.
Yeah, for sure. I think you've said it previously. Like you and I, we either DM on Twitter or like we text, and we're just talking like all day about how good these running backs look. And it's fun to kind of pick your brain about it. I think the best way that I've heard it said among other analysts is just like the fluidity and, the way he does it, like you said, is effortless, and it definitely shows on tape. So I'm with you on that for sure. One thing we do have to bring up with Jonathan Taylor, everything that we've said so far for most of these guys is good, positive things because they're all absolute studs. But is the fumbling an issue for you?
Yeah. And that is by far the biggest knock on his game. I don't have the number right in front of me. I can pull it up while we're talking. His fumbling issue is definitely a red flag. It is the biggest knock on his game coming out. He fumbled 18 times in 41 career games. That is about every 2.5 games.
Yeah.
Put him on the ground. That is a concern. Now this year, yeah. And the thing that I don't like is that it's been consistent for 3 seasons. He had 8 as a freshman. He had 4 as a sophomore. Great. You think that he's getting better at it. And then he had 6 again this year. And that's something that I think GMs are definitely going to take a look at. I think that the pros of his game outweighs that. There have been a lot of running backs that have come out with fumbling issues in college where having a good position coach at the NFL level has been able to help them navigate that and fix that issue. Miles Sanders was one coming out last year that had a fumbling issue in college. I think he only fumbled twice, if I remember right, this season.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, he definitely was able to kind of get that corrected. I think that it is something that's proven to be correctable at the next level. But, he definitely needs to shore that up because some NFL franchises will be patient with their running backs. If they put it on the ground, some will not, and they will get a short leash in a hurry. So that's something that he is going to have to take care of at the next level. But again, the way that he runs, the technical ability, he's just a tactician of a running back. He's the kind of running back that steals the soul of a defense because you think that you've got him. You think that you've got him pegged. You think that it's taken care of. The defenders are putting 100% max effort, and he's just kind of fluidly navigating and bobbing and weaving. It's kind of like a skier going down a slope, right? He's just kind of getting his way through, and it's just frustrating to a defense beyond anything else. He is a NFL running back through and through. I've got him with a final grade of 78.5.
Yeah. It's a thing of beauty to watch, man. His tape is fun to watch for sure. For more on Jonathan Taylor, for more on DeAndre Swift, be sure to check out John's work over on the website, redshirtsfantasyfootball.com. We have new articles going up at this point in the season, probably every other day, but John drops his running back of the week, so to speak, on Thursday. So look for that soon. We will probably have that out Thursday afternoon. Check it out. And then, of course, each week we will talk about these running backs more and more. These are the top 5. Of course, they're all studs. It was fun today because we get to talk about all the good stuff, but we've got some more prospects to break down here in the future. Yeah. Guys like Keyshawn Vaughn, guys like Anthony McFarland, etc., Zach Moss, which we're going to talk about in detail, just like these guys. Right. So that's on the to-do list. That'll drop soon. In the meantime, John, where can we find your work? And of course, where can they follow you on Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter handle right at the bottom there at JCW Helmkamp. Feel free to follow me there. I'll have some work going up on Expand the Box Score, and then again continuing to have kind of weekly profiles of these incoming rookie running backs. The combines in what are we at 2.5 weeks till the combine. It's right around the corner. It never stops. So we're gonna have some more detailed information. I'll basically get the articles on the top 5 out before we get to the combine is basically how that's going to shake down. And then I'm really excited, like you were talking about, to get into some of the other ones that might be your sleeper picks. Joshua Kelly out of UCLA had a great Senior Bowl showing. So that'll be fun to kind of break him down a little bit more too.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to that for sure. All right, everyone, you know where to find us. Is of course at Redshirts FF Pod. You can find me at the Fantasy PT. Okada is at Matt Okada. This episode, will drop probably at the end of this week. If you're watching us live, it'll come out later this week in your podcast app. We can be found anywhere podcasts are found: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. Find us there. Until next time, we are the Redshirts.